Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Yaakov for inviting me to be here tonight. And thank you guys for joining and being with us. So today we would like to discuss a little bit of the history of the wine in Israel. Then we're going to specify in the Golan. And we'll discuss a little bit about the wines and developing what's happening now and the different terroirs that we have inside the Golan itself. Just before that, 2 words about myself. My name is Shmuel Koppel. I was born and raised here in Israel. So if my English isn't 100%, you guys are going to have to forgive me. Parents are from New York and whatever, so we're okay. And I'm a winemaker in Chateau Golan, part of the winemaking crew. Been there for about a year. I have also my own little vineyard in Efrat in Gush Etzion. And that's pretty much it. All right, so let's start moving into actual wine talk. Israel, as I'm sure you all know, is starting in the last 20 to 30 years to join the wine map of the world wine map. But the real history of Israeli wine goes way back, the time of the Second Temple already. I'm sure we all know there's been wine that was being poured on the Mizbeach. There's been lots and lots of wine that was made in Israel all over the country. Archaeological digs all over the country are finding many and many wine presses from the north, from here in the Golan, down to the south of Beersheba, even Negev. There are wine presses all over the country. In fact, even on the shores of Rome and the shores of Italy and even some places of France, they were found in digs these amphoras, which had these signatures on them, that they were made in Ashkelon or in Gaza. In other words, that are from the time of the Second Temple. In other words, already 2,000 years ago, there was wine that was being shipped from Israel to France and Italy, which is kind of funny to imagine nowadays that there was that Israel would be shipping wine to France and to Italy. We're kind of used to France and Italy being the big empires of wine, and us being like these little guys that are just trying to join in and touching a little drop in the sea. But yeah, way back then, Israel was a very serious wine empire. During the Muslim period here in Israel, the Islamic period, where alcohol was forbidden, basically almost all the grapes that were being grown for wine were uprooted or had been just put out of use. They weren't used and were basically wiped out within time. So now when we came back, there was a lot of research being done trying to figure out what exactly were those types of wines that were made 2,000 years ago, and it's very difficult to find them. People are checking in the digs and the presses that were found, looking for these old pits, trying to get out their DNA and to compare them to the grapes that we have nowadays. Very interesting research. But bottom line is we don't really know yet what the exact grape was that was being grown then. So we have our own versions. Israel is now becoming a very interesting wine country, but we don't really have our own thing yet. We don't have our own niche, like France has their old school, Australia, the new land. There's a lot of, every place has its thing, but Israel, we kind of, similar to the people, we have a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit of everything. So it kind of became our own thing as being a little part of everything. All right, so now to the more recent history of wine in Israel. In the 1880s, Baron Rothschild started with planting new grapes that were meant for wine in Israel. He started what we all know as the Carmel Mizrahi. Mostly they planted Carignan and other sorts of grape varieties that we don't really have today. They were imported probably mostly from India. And that started the industry, but that was very slow. Only in the 1980s did a bunch of winemakers from California come to Israel and say, hey, wait a minute, this place has great potential. We already know it has potential from 2,000 years ago. And started rebuilding up the market and started something completely new. the real leaders of this movement of making real good quality wine in Israel, and not just what many people know as the Manischewitz and other Mavushal kosher wines that have been made till then. So the first one is really the Golan Heights winery. So it all started here in the Golan. And slowly, there are more and more wine all over the country, from more winemakers, more wineries being opened up. We have from the Golan down to Ramat Negev, Kadesh Barnea, even in Sde Boker, in the Machtesh, in the middle of the Negev, there's wine being grown and made. It's really unbelievable how we see like what the prophets were kind of visualizing is going to happen one day. Yes, sometime after the exile, Jews will be back in their land and making wine, and here it's happening. So, that being said, let's discuss a little bit about the amounts of wine that are being made in Israel, and then we're going to move into the Golan, specifying the Golan. So in Israel nowadays, there's about 55 million bottles of wine being produced every year. So first hearing it's like, wow, 55 million is a lot. But sometimes like you'll have some medium-sized wineries in France that on their own make 55 million. So we're not really that big. On the other hand, we do have over 360 wineries already in Israel, most of which have opened up in the last 20 years. But it's really about 7 to 8 wineries which control about 90% of the market of the produce. In other words, there are a few big wineries and many, many very small boutique wineries. The Golan, like in the rest of Israel, like we said, there were a whole bunch of digs which found old wine presses such as El Kanatir, Ein Nashot. There are a whole bunch of old synagogues from the time of the Second Temple, and near the synagogues, almost always we find also a wine press. So what's happening now is really we're just going back to the roots, not doing anything completely new. Just continuing our old tradition. We had a little break there for 2,000 years, but now we're back. So now let's discuss a little bit about the terroir and geographics. Okay, so I'm sure everyone knows where Israel is located. We're relatively south to all the rest of the wine regions. In other words, we got here Italy, we got France. Everyone's up here in the north. Israel, we're down here south at 23 Koppel. Anyways, the 23rd of the lines of the whatever they're called.
We're gonna Google it.
Yeah, we're gonna Google it. Like I said, English not perfect yet. We'll get there. So we're relatively south. We're bordering here with Africa, which is obviously not real wine country. Excuse me if there are any South Africans here. On our east, we don't really have any wine. Most of the wine is being made north of here. So we're really as just about as south as it gets, at least for the northern hemisphere. Whereas south as it gets for making wine. And now a lot of people visualize Israel like, deserty kind of country. But no, we all know that in the northern part of the Golan, we have the Hermon, which, as of this morning, still has snow on it. So despite the fact that we're so south and we have this deserty climate, we also have mountains, which reach up to 6,000 feet. And we have our cold nights, our cold temperatures. So we end up here with something very special as a wine country, something that's very different. Now, what makes the Golan even more special inside Israel is the volcanic soil. The soil in the Golan is everything. Volcano that erupted thousands of years ago. The lava poured out, caused basically a lot of volcanic soil, known as basilic soil. And basically the way it poured out, it made a plateau, which is all known as the Golan Heights, is one big plateau. But what people don't always realize is that there is a very, very big difference between the northern part to the southern part. It's relatively subtle, but we spread over about 40-something miles, where the northern part is about 2,000 meters, 2,200 meters in the Hermon, and below the Hermon is already Odem, and that area, which is about 1,200, 1,300 meters above sea level, whereas the southern part of the Golan is only 200 meters above sea level. So we have very big variation, also with the temperatures, but also with the soil itself. So in other words, inside the Golan, which is a region inside Israel, we have its own little terroirs. Okay, so I'll try giving us a few examples now. Over here, I'm not sure you can see. This is some soil which is took today from the southern part of the Golan. Southern part, we have very, very deep soil. It's very rich and heavy, dark. You can see this dark basilica color, which can hold a lot of water. And that will give us a certain kind of minerals. In the central part of the Golan, we have these kind of stones which are very strong, solid stones. Don't contain much water, almost no water at all. And in the northern part, we have a lot of these, what we call tuf rocks, which are very airy. I wish you guys were able to be here and hold on to these rocks, because this rock, for example, it's like weighs nothing. Whereas this guy, just a few kilometers, miles south, boom, got a lot of personality, strong, heavy stuff. And the reason I'm really telling you guys this is because how this affects the wine itself. In the northern part of the country, of the Golan, where we have our tuf rocks, we have a lot of these little holes. I hope you guys can see them. These little holes can contain oxygen, they contain water, and what they end up containing is a lot of minerals. So the wine and the grapes that are grown in the northern part of the country, of the Golan, rarely need to be watered. A lot of times the soil itself is going to contain a lot of water inside those bubbles, which causes something amazing for the grapes, because the grape, they know how to let their roots out into these little holes, and they're drinking the water out of the rocks and out of the soil at their own pace, which for the grapes is unbelievable, right? Imagine us if we get to eat at our own pace compared to if someone decides for us, okay, now you're going to eat a very big meal, then you're going to starve for 6 hours, then you're going to eat again a giant meal. That's basically what happens with most irrigation systems, right? We're giving the grapes a lot of water at one time with the irrigation system. Then we're waiting for it to dry up and dry up and dry up. And then the next day, the next 4 days, maybe a week later, we'll give another big amount of water. So we're basically the ones deciding the pace for the grapes, which gives us a bit of control on one hand. But on the other hand, like we said, it's never the same as if the grape gets the vine decides for itself when it's thirsty, when it's drinking. That can cause something amazing. So in the central part of the Golan, where we have these very solid rocks, over here, the ground, the soil contains less water, so we're using the irrigation systems. Over here we have a very interesting variation, because over here, on the other hand, like we said, we have more control. Once we have more control, we can play with different varieties and have more interesting game. And then in the southern part of the Golan, we have this very, very deep soil, which also holds a lot of water. So also here, the vine can, till a very late point in the year, can let itself not need irrigation system. It has the water there underneath the surface. It's going to drink it at its own pace. But we're going to have much less minerals inside this soil compared to the air bubbles that we got in the northern part of the Golan. And this affects us with very different styles of wine. All right, now let's start moving into the wine itself. So first of all, l'chaim, everyone. I made a bracha before. In the Golan itself, we have a bunch of different wineries from the south in Eliad, where I work in Chateau Golan, up to the very north in Odem, where we have Mount Odem Winery. This is excellent for showing. Over here in the southern part is Eliad. over here in the middle, we have those solid rocks. Over here, we'll have Ikvei Ramat Golan, the Golan Heights Winery, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. Although their vines are located all over the Golan. In the northern part, so we have Har Odem, and in the middle we have a whole bunch more of smaller wineries. We got Bazelet, we have Yekev Asaf, a whole bunch of wineries. They don't want to discuss the wineries themselves more. They want to discuss the wines and the styles that we have here. The southern part, like we said, which has the deep soil, is gonna have wines. It also has much warmer temperature. I'll point out there's rarely ever snow in the southern part of the Golan. Much warmer temperature, like we said, 200 meters above sea level. It's much more humid. The harvest season, despite the fact that they're both in the Golan, the harvest season can be almost 2 months earlier in the southern part compared to the northern part, which is very interesting. It's going to affect the style itself of the wine. In the southern part, we're going to usually look, because of the heat, we're going to want to harvest when the grapes get to their complete flavors. Their complete flavors, we want to get it not with too much alcohol. If the sugar content starts going up, then we're going to have very high alcohol. So we want to get it at a certain point where it has enough flavor, but doesn't start getting too sweet. So what we're going to end up having is usually lighter bodied wines, because they were harvested earlier, and with less sugar, because we don't want it to be over sweet and over alcohol. And the more we move north, usually the more heavy body we're going to have. All right, in the northern part, where you almost don't water at all, so the harvest is going to be probably end of September, even into October. Sometimes it might even reach the beginning of November. And if we're harvesting in November and the grapes, their starting point is usually much more similar. In other words, just about now, today, the grapes are actually they're flowering and starting to let out the new little baby grapes, which are going to be harvested in the summer. So at this time of year, they're flowering all over the country. And if they're harvesting in the northern part 2 months later, basically what that means is that the grapes were on the vine for 2 months longer. If they were on the vine for 2 months longer, what we end up having is a grape that has time to sit there, to soak up these minerals out of the soil, can end up very rich, full of flavor, and still, because of the cold temperatures that they get out, especially at night, but also during the day, the grape had much more time on the vine, much more time to soak up all those minerals. The alcohol, the sugar level didn't get very high yet, and you can end up making wines that are very, very rich, very heavy, more, let's say, California style. Parker would be pleased with them. And in the middle, there's a very large variation. You can probably basically do as you wish. I brought here a few examples to show you guys.
Get you guys jealous.
Yeah, in the northern part, this is a Mount Odem Syrah, which 2012, one of the best wines I think that were made in the country. I would say probably my favorite Syrah. It is extremely rich. It's got these very strong, like plum jam, pruny flavor to it. Really, very, very impressive wine. For those who like heavy wines, definitely go in that direction. Especially if you guys like Syrah, Odem Syrah, unbelievable. So compare it to the Yarden Syrah, also unbelievable wine, but much more classy in a way, a bit less strong in alcohol, but different. So from the Golan Heights, yes. What I find interesting is that within just a few small kilometers, you can have such a very strong variation of the wine themselves. Both excellent wines, but you'll see there if you compare them, and I hope you do. You'll see that they're the different style of the winemaker itself, which is going to make it different, but also in the grapes themselves. Something a little bit less rich in the Yarden, and more rich in the Odem. And if you would go even farther south to Chateau Golan, for example, Syrah, which is completely different, more like a French Syrah, a little bit lighter, more classic and elegant. And then, okay,
So
that's pretty much it. I'd be happy to answer more questions if you guys have any questions.
it's very challenging to do a wine session, I gotta say, through Zoom, because you get to drink it all. But if anyone has questions, I'll ask you. I want to start with the question, maybe. Hi, everyone. Um, we know there's over 15 boutique wineries in the Golan. Are they exported to the United States? Can people purchase Golan wines abroad, in the United States, in Britain, in South Africa?
Yeah, so first of all, of course, the main one that I'm sure many people have heard of, the Golan Heights, which, like we said, we're one of the first wineries in the country, definitely the
Golan
first
Heights
one,
Winery.
Golan Heights Winery. The first one to really bring the high level wine, the classic wines to Israel. They're usually about like 10, 15 years ahead of the rest of the wine system in the country. So just about anywhere you can get Golan Heights Winery, the Yardain series, very well known. The Yardain Cabernet, probably one of the most famous wines that have been made in Israel every year. Unbelievable wine, very classic, very rich, just a fun to drink with a lot of fruit. It's all over the world. If you're looking for it, you'll find it just about anywhere.
Um, so we have our three questions. First of all, the names of the two wines you mentioned. So, and to show the label. So this is Yarden from the Yarden series. This is the Syrah, right? This is the Syrah. The specific one is 2015 from the Golan Heights Winery. Shmuel, do you remember how many bottles they export every year abroad? The Golan Winery, Golan Heights Winery.
I'm not 100% sure, but I would assume that probably just over 1 million, maybe even 1.5 million.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% on the exporting of them. I definitely tasted all our wines. They have no mistakes. Every wine is a good wine. But about their exporting, I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure.
And this you know because you worked for Mount Odem.
Yes.
This is Har Odem, Mount Odem, a boutique winery. I think 100,000 bottles a year.
Yeah, just about 100,000 bottles made every year. This is I would say their top wine. Yeah, so if this not a cheap bottle, it's about 140 shekel.
That would be.
I don't know, in dollars that would probably be about $40.
We'll be posting a picture when we finish here. We'll take a picture of the rocks and of the bottles and put it up on the Facebook group from Golan with Love at the event, so people can see. Really, I hope you got a good a glance at it. Okay, we have a question from Frank Harris. He's asking, which of the Golan wineries have visitor centers?
Okay, so for them, just about all of them, I would say, have visitor centers, all except for one. And they're actually very nice visiting centers. There are different styles of the visiting centers. Obviously, the Golan Heights, being a very large winery, has many tourists, has buses coming all the time. So it's a little more industrial, their wine center, but especially built for tourism and for it. I've done the tour probably about 3 or 4 times with different guests that I brought, and I enjoyed it every time. You get to go into the barrel room and see the barrels. You get to see the new machinery. You do tastings at the end. It's very nice. In Chateau Golan and in Yekev Asaf, which are actually both not kosher wineries at the moment, Chateau Golan, we're working on making a part of it kosher. It's going to have a different brand name because you can't have a winery with selling also kosher and also not kosher with the same name. But Chateau Golan and Yekev Asaf both have very nice visiting centers, which are very calm and mellow. You basically come, you sit outside on the grass, you have some cheese and some wine. It's a great atmosphere. In Odem and in Bazelit, also they have wine tours and tastings, less of the sitting outdoors, more, come see the barrels, see the winemaking, learn about the process, sit down and have some fun wine. But yeah, there's definitely what to see and what to visit and what to taste here in the Golan. I would definitely recommend. They're also planning on opening up go through all the 4 wineries. really actually working. There's a nice cooperation of a lot of the wineries in the Golan, working on making the Golan more into a wine country. Since, like we said, we're very unique, we're very special. Okay, so I don't know where you guys lost me, but there's a lot of nice cooperation with the wineries in the Golan.
Well, questions are we still have 8 more questions. So 1 second, let's see. Do any have restaurants?
No.
No, there are some cooperations I know of. For example, the Bazilit Hagolan here. I actually have my favorite wine. It's from a winery called Bazilit Hagolan. And this is actually a wine called the 188. It's named for my unit that I serve in, so of course that's my favorite. If you pre-order, and you can do it through their website, they'll order from catering. We spoke about cooperation, so we'll do it. They will do it, except they will do it through a different local restaurant. They'll make sure you have food. I think most of them they'll serve like cheeses and those kind of things, right?
Yeah, and just about all the wineries, if you ask and try to make an event in advance, they'll flow with you. All right, you can make the event, but they don't have the regular restaurants that are open all the time. There are some other great restaurants in the Golan, and because everyone in the Golan, everyone knows each other. It's all kinds of one big Golan family. So every restaurant is going to have some wines from just about all the wineries that are here. So in other words, you can go to a restaurant and easily have a fun wine tasting, taste a bunch of different wines, or buy a bottle. It's doable. You can have a nice quality, very good steak, by the way. We didn't talk about this, but the Golan has excellent meat too.
That's for a different session.
Yeah, the cows here, most of the cows that are raised for meat. Sorry vegans, but you should know that other people that aren't vegans.
Can you send us more winery names with good wines that we can buy in the U.S.? What I'll do at the moment we finish, we'll sit down, we'll write up, we'll try giving you a list of all of the Golan's wineries so we don't leave anyone out. The Golan actually produced sort of a wine trail. You can spend there 3, maybe even 4 days just going from winery to winery. At some point you won't remember what region of Israel you're in, but still, I've seen groups from Germany and Italy do it. So we will give you all the information on the Facebook group and we'll be happy. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting question. You ready? Which years are particularly good vintages from the Golan for particular grapes?
Excellent question. 2012, excellent year overall. 2015 is a special year, I would say. 2015, there was like a very strong heat wave. Also in May, also in July, grapes jumped a few bricks in a very short amount of time. So 2015 is very interesting all over the country, not only in the Golan. For people that like full-bodied and heavy wines with a lot of personality, 2016 was an excellent year. They had a lot of very full bodies, especially the Cabernet. You can feel it the strongest. Yeah, the Tempranillo 2014 was very good.
I enjoyed once Karen Benzimra's Shiraz by Adir Winery. Is that considered a good winery, or was it just a good bottle?
Well, first of all, generally, I would do my best not to talk about other wineries, like specific wineries. They have a few very, very good wines. Their Shiraz happened. Yes, I had that the Shiraz from Karen Benzimra. Karen Benzimra itself is a very excellent terroir. They're not actually in the Golan, by the way. They're in the Galil, which are just west of us.
But we like them. We still like them.
But they're friends. They're friends, colleagues. But yeah, the Adir Shiraz is a very good wine. Adir has a whole bunch of other very good wines. Also, if you're into port style wines, Adir has a very excellent dessert wine.
Okay, again, it keeps on going, so I'll say it again because the question keeps on coming up. When we finish the workshop, we will send pictures also of the labels here, and also a list of the wineries. And we'll even try getting you even the contact info for each one of them. So our group is From Golan with Love. You can request to join if you're not in yet. and just we'll put it up on the event page right after we finish. Let's see. Anything else? Someone asked about capacity of exporting. Where was that question? Okay. Irene is asking, does each winery have different wines or just produce one wine?
Whew. No, very far from producing one wine. In fact, it's kind of a problem. We have too many varieties of of wines for every winery. Every winery wants to be making also a Cab, also a Merlot, also a Shiraz, Petit Verdot, a Grenache, a Mourvèdre. So the real problem that a lot of the wineries have is that despite being a small winery, which makes only 100,000 bottles and less, you end up having like 15 different varieties of bottles. So it ends up giving you a lot of work because each vine, each grape has its own care, its own harvesting date, its own taking care with different bottles, different. So no, I don't think there's a single winery in the Golan which would produce only one kind of wine.
Okay, I heard that the Golan are going to produce a whiskey. Can you tell us about it? Can I just, on personal note, I've been there is the Golan distillery here, and they make some good whiskey. The whiskey maker, is that the term? David Ziebel came from Canada, and he's one of the first three distilleries in Israel. His Jewish Pirate, that's the name of it, Rome, is a blast out of this world. We're actually talking to them about having also a whiskey session live from the distillery, so stay posted because we're going to make it happen. Okay. Has Israel, we'll take one more and then we're going to have to say goodbye. Has Israel won any international prizes for its wines? If so, which ones? Is that something?
Yes, there are a whole bunch of wines which won international prizes. I would say probably the biggest and most famous ones would be the Shiraz Kayumi 2007, which is actually by Carmel. Carmel usually has a name. You hear Carmel, people are like, whoa, Carmel, that's a not such a good winery. But Carmel actually made some of the very, very excellent wine. And like I said, Shiraz Kayumi brought a lot of pride to Israel, especially the 2007. Very excellent. Like the wine that we mentioned before, Yardain Cabernet Sauvignon of the Golan Heights Winery, won many prizes all over. The Syrah of Odin, which I showed you guys before, won also a bunch of international prizes. But yeah, first of all, it's important to remember that there are many competitions all over the world. So, and Israel is, since we're trying to get into the market, there are wines being sent all over the place. So yeah, there are, like in Belgium and in all kinds of places, there are competitions, and Israel is getting more and more medals. Yeah, so there are many, but I would say surprisingly that a lot of them are going to the Shiraz and the Syrahs, which, by the way, are pretty much the same grape as Shiraz and Syrah. They're just a matter of style, but they're basically the same variety. So that's actually being very successful in Israel.
Okay, yes. I see. Is that Jim from the West London Synagogue saying, as a Scot, you will need to change the name from whiskey to something else. Okay, we'll take that notice. Okay, let's see. I see there are two more questions. I said we're going to end, but I can't. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. We're very flattered. I'll show you afterwards what everyone is saying. If you can tell us ahead of time where to buy a certain wine, you can do a wine tasting with us. Yes, we are planning, since this whole webinar idea just came after, in the past week, I've been talking as part of my job to different communities, and I've realized that we felt everything is back to normal in Israel and abroad. People are still in lockdown, so we just put it together, and Shmuel was kind enough to just, in a very busy time, just come and do it. We hope to also, you can stay in touch with us, and with Shmuel, we'd love to do one with shipping wine to you and having us drink together, not just drink in front of you and take your eyes out, as they say in Hebrew. And of course, we're waiting eagerly for you guys to be able to come here and just sit with us and drink and Actually, I'll say Shmuel has an amazing session called the Golan Through 7 Cups, which you might not remember when you finish after you drink so much, but I've gone through it and it was really fun.
Yes, we taste basically wines from the southern part of the Golan up to the northern part of the Golan. We have 2 whites, 5 reds, and we basically see how the wines change from the southern part to the northern part. We see how the farther north we go, the wines get more powerful and more strong. You kind of get a little feeling of the whole Golan region in one evening. I think it's very fun. I enjoy it every time.
Okay, and Kevin, last thing I'll say, Kevin says, I found that I do not enjoy a French Chardonnay, but my supplier in the UK, they're very good, by the way, sent me a bottle of Israeli Chardonnay by Yarden by mistake. Is it the climate or the terroir that makes the main difference?
Okay, so the Chardonnay made by Yarden, known as the Chardonnay Katzrin, is probably the most popular Chardonnay in Israel and is also exported a lot. It is a very special wine, but I think in this case it's not actually just the terroir. It's a combination of the terroir. It's their Chardonnays from the northern part of the Golan. So the grapes get a very full ripening. They're very rich in flavor, but they also put them in French barrels for between 8 to 10 months, usually in new barrels. So you get a lot of oak, which makes it even more rich and a very buttery wine. It's a very, very special wine, the Chardonnay Katzrin. It's like almost a red wine. It's so heavy, so full of personality. But that is definitely a special and outstanding Chardonnay in Israel. I think the only one that would be similar to that would be, what do they call it, right outside Yerushalayim, famous winery? Koppel. The Koppel Chardonnay is also kind of similar to that. But it's a unique. It's not all Chardonnays in Israel are made with such strong oak and such rich flavors.
Okay, guys. Judy, we're happy we're making your holiday weekend more festive. It was a pleasure. Shmuel, how can we reach you if anyone wants to ask more questions?
We'll post here my email.
On our Facebook group, we're going to open it now. Now understand that it is private. We will have it open so everyone can join us from Golan with Love. Tomorrow's schedule will be put up shortly with links. The Zoom, we have some Krav Maga for those who want that. We're going to have a Druze entrepreneur discuss Druze community of the Golan and some other good stuff coming. Right after this, in 15 minutes, we have a class combining Yom HaGolan, Golan Liberation Day, and Yom Yerushalayim through King David's perspective. It's going to be with Rabbi Erez Levi from the Keshet Yehuda Pre-Military Academy, a Tanakh expert. So the link is on the Facebook group, and those who got our different publications through WhatsApp and email. And we'll end, of course, with another l'chaim. I hope you guys brought your own bottle also. So really, l'chaim to...
Yeah, we're actually drinking a Sangiovese, which, for those who asked if there's only one type of wine being made. So even Sangiovese, which is not such a well-known grape, Italian from Chianti, is being made here in the Golan. One of my favorites, very fruity, light wine, fun to drink. So yeah, l'chaim.
For Jewish solidarity, for health, for happy Shavuot, and for the Golan Heights in the state of Israel.
Oh my,
l'chaim. Guys, it was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you in 15 minutes with Rabbi Erez Levi.